Today's topic is dealing with a breakup. Now, the reason I talk about this particular topic more than anything else is the vast majority of you find yourselves on my channel whenever you're dealing with, of course, a breakup. And unlike some other channels that talk about how to get an ex back or the proper tactics of getting an ex back or how to increase your odds, I usually talk about self-reflection and growth in a breakup. The reason I talk about it is that if you're finding yourself on my channel, in other words, if you're going out and seeking this information, the reason you're seeking it out is because this is a rather traumatic experience, fully so. And with that trauma usually comes some need for reflection, some need for growth. Why is that? Well, let's talk about the human psyche for just a minute. The human psyche, when we peel away the layers, is an emotional sponge. It wants to absorb as much emotion as possible, and most importantly, it wants to feel safe in doing it. Depending on what our upbringings have entailed, whether we grew up in a safe environment or a chaotic environment, whether we felt we could express ourselves or suppress our emotions, we will be dealing with an inner child that usually feels like it can express or suppress its emotions. And usually these emotions lie rather dormant until some kind of traumatic event sparks it. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a very anxiety-driven event. We find ourselves alone, feeling vulnerable, feeling separated, feeling fear for the loss of this person that has left our lives. Why is this important? Well, it's important because these traumatic events don't happen every day. These traumatic events can help define you for the better if you actually take the time and effort to develop your inner core, to develop these anxiety triggering events. And if you can address these underlying issues, you can actually become a better version of yourself. That's at least the intent of most of these videos. What often is forgotten in our obsession with getting an ex back is this need for understanding, this need for comfort, this need for love and nurturing. We usually externally seek it. We seek it in our ex-spouses. We seek this validation in someone that has chosen to exit our lives, and we feel an incredible sense of anxiety and vulnerability as a result of it because we've chosen to open ourselves up to this other person, and for whatever reason, this other person has chosen to exit our lives, justifiably or not. We are still feeling the burden of that abandonment. We are feeling that inner child screaming for attention, screaming for love, unconditional love. And it's because of this anxiety-driven emotion that we constantly feel in times of breakups. We find whatever we can to relieve that anxiety. And we can do things in the short term to definitely help in that outcome. We can go to the gym, we can be social with friends, we can do things that trigger dopamine rushes in our brain. But those are only short-term solutions. And eventually, we have to face this anxiety, this reality that we've been hit with. Someone has abandoned us for all intents and purposes. And at least for the foreseeable future, they're not coming back. So how do we deal with this anxiety and this drive for wanting this person? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to truly accept what happened. Accept the breakup took place. Accept that your ex, for whatever reason, decided to end the relationship, regardless of whether it's temporary or permanent. And through that acceptance and through that absorption of that reality, we feel an excessive amount of pain, an excessive amount of suffering. But through that suffering, we'll come to the realization of what it is we truly need to do to get better, what it is that we truly need to do in order to become a better version of ourselves, in order to rediscover who we were before this relationship. It's very funny because for the most part, every single one of you was a unique individual. You attracted this person into your life for one reason or another. And it's because you brought value that this relationship occurred in the first place. Now, if you're dealing with that insecurity, that self-doubt, understand that self-doubt is temporary, and understand that self-doubt is completely self-fulfilling. You can choose to listen to that inner critic, to that little voice that tells you you're not sufficient. Or you can use this as motivation to build yourself into something better. And it's never as simple as saying, well, you just need to go to the gym, or you just need to immerse yourself into your work, or you need to immerse yourself into this day-to-day activity. It's not that simple. It never is. But instead, what you need to do is you need to invest your time in what defined you into what you actually were prior to the relationship. More so, as you're dealing with this trauma and as you're seeing the layers of the onion peel away and you're discovering this inner child of yours that is traumatized, you can actually take this inner child and actually help this inner child, because you're no longer that child. You can acknowledge the child, you can acknowledge the suffering of the child, but you're no longer defined by this image that you've portrayed in yourself. You're no longer defined by someone that doesn't have any value. Quite the opposite. You have value. You're here today. You're still alive because you have value. Destiny hasn't given up on you yet. This is why you came to this channel in the first place and discovered this video. It's up to you to define what it is that you want to be moving forward, what it is that you want to do with your life to make it self-fulfilling. Then and only then can we start talking about getting the X back. But the beauty of it is, by the time that you actually are fully internally fulfilled and are content with who you are and do regain that self-value and actually can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I feel joy, I'm happy again, you're going to look back at that ex and wonder what it was that they had over you. And how was it that this one person, this person that hurt you, held such a high level of control over you for such a short period of time? That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would ask that you hit the thumbs up icon below. For those of you that haven't subscribed, I would highly recommend it.